Columbus landed in Jamaica in 1494 and took possession of the island in the name of Spain. He established a settlement on the island at New Seville on the swampy north coast. The location proved unhealthy. Yellow fever and malaria took a heavy toll of lives among the Europeans. As a result of this, the settlement was moved after 34 years to a more desirable location. They established a new settlement on the south coast of the island. Today, that city is known as Spanish Town. Historians tell us that the Spaniards established Spanish Town inland 4 miles from the sea. What historians don't know is that at the time, the sea was very close to Spanish Town, but we will return to that later. Spanish Town had to be defended from all the other European nations who looked on enviously at the Spanish discoveries in the West. The wealth to be obtained in gold and other commodities became obvious, and all nations wanted their share. Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector, came to power in England in 1653 and ruled until his death in 1658. While in office, he crafted what he called his Western design. He wanted a piece of the action in the New World, but in order to get it, he had to gain a foothold in the West. He mounted a naval assault of 6,000 men under Admiral Penn and General Venables. They attacked Jamaica. The naval invasion in 1660 was able to secure a landing without opposition because the inhabitants had fled to the jungles. After that, however, the British had to fight a guerrilla war with the Spaniards to gain possession of the island. The war lasted for the next 5 years. The Spaniards were finally ousted in 1665. The British established their headquarters in Spanish Town. Sir Thomas Modiford was appointed governor of the island. He knew that the first order of business was to build fortifications to protect their new possession. Now that they had gained a foothold in the west, it had to be defended. The Spaniards still wanted to repossess the island, and the French harbored similar territorial ambitions. Just 1 mile offshore from the coast at Spanish Town was a sand spit about the size of 1 acre of land. The Spaniards had used this island to careen their boats. The British saw this island as an ideal location for fortifications that would protect the seaward approach to Spanish Town. They built a fort on the island and named it Fort Charles after the king. In the Institute of Jamaica, there are watercolor depictions done hundreds of years ago showing Fort Charles being built on the edge of the sea. Of course, it was only a small island, so that is perfectly understandable. The small sandspit came to be called Port Royal. In the 17th century, Port Royal was to rise to worldwide prominence to become the richest and wickedest city on earth. Not bad for its inauspicious start as a small sandy island in the mouth of Kingston Harbor. But how did this come about? What series of events led to this transformation? We shall see. Modiford, the governor, charged with the responsibility of defending the island, faced a major problem. The new colonial outpost lacked the necessary manpower to defend the island successfully. Modiford had his work cut out for him. The buccaneers were outlaws that actively engaged in piracy. They normally harassed the Spanish ships and any other ships that plied the high seas. Modiford saw them as an ideal defender of the tiny island outpost, so he gave them letters of marque to encourage them to plunder Spanish shipping. All things considered, it was a stroke of logical planning to solve the defense problem. The buccaneers, led by Henry Morgan, became the scourge of the Spanish shipping lanes and even attacked Spanish settlements in Panama, bringing home to Jamaica gold, ships, and all sort of booty captured from the Spaniards. The governor Modiford encouraged the buccaneers in their private war with the Spaniards. He also saw a wonderful opportunity in killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He gave Henry Morgan and his motley crew the island, which was now named Port Royal, to be used as their base. They were charged with the responsibility of defending the island against all comers. The governor saw this as an opportunity of profiting from the looting of the buccaneers, and at the same time getting the island defended. It worked very well, for soon Port Royal developed a reputation of being the richest city in the world. On the other side was the fact that it was known as a sinful and wicked city. Drunkenness and prostitution flourished. It was said that there was a tavern on every street corner. Over the 2 centuries since the Spaniards first landed, Port Royal had grown impressively as the seas receded. There was a rich Portuguese trading community and fine 3-story houses that charged rentals higher than London. Streets were laid out and Port Royal had its own synagogue and church. The wicked ways of the city persisted. On Wednesday, June 7th, 1692, at 11:22 a.m., the world of Port Royal came to an end with a disastrous earthquake. Half of the island sank into the sea, never to rise again. Port Royal sat astride an active earthquake fault line which erupted violently, sealing the fate of the city. At the time of the earthquake in 1692, the island of Port Royal had grown to 60 acres of land. After the earthquake, only 25 acres remained above sea level. The rest of the city lay beneath the waters of Kingston Harbor. Today, Port Royal is the foremost submarine heritage site in the world. All the remains of the old city are preserved under the waters of Kingston Harbor. Here in the graveyard of the church in Port Royal lies the body of Louis Galdi, a Huguenot from Rochelle in France. He came to Jamaica to avoid religious persecution in that country. During the great earthquake in 1692, many eyewitnesses saw when Galdi was swallowed by a large fissure that opened up and pulled him in as the sea rushed in. In another few seconds, the earth opened again and flung Galdi out. His life was saved. Galdi lived on for many years, and when he died, his body was taken across the harbor to be buried on the mainland. This was because Port Royal had no cemetery. The water table was too high at that time. 200 years after his death, the government of Jamaica brought his body back here to be buried, because over that time the sea level had dropped considerably and it was now possible to have a cemetery in Port Royal. The grave of Louis Galdi is a popular tourist attraction and has been seen by millions through the years, including the Queen of England, who asked to see it in 1953 when she visited Jamaica. Port Royal now has a well-established cemetery and is now hundreds of acres in size, all in 500 years. It seems almost miraculous that the small sand spit grew and kept growing as the sea receded. At first, it was impossible to bury the dead here because of the high water table. Over hundreds of years, however, the sea has receded by about 1/4 of a mile, and Port Royal now has a well-established cemetery. We are here in Port Royal at Fort Charles. The fort is hundreds of years old. It was built by the British when they captured Jamaica in 1655. Some of Britain's greatest naval heroes served here. Admiral Lord Nelson has his quarter deck here while he looked for French ships. Nelson chased the French Navy across the Atlantic and eventually cornered them at Trafalgar, that fatal battle. When this fort was built, it was on the water's edge. Today, as you can see, the fort is far away from the sea. The foundations of the fort show signs of being undermined by sea wave action, yet the sea is 1/4 of a mile away. This departure of the sea has taken place in 350 years. Receding seas affects all of our lives. I am Richard.